Hello and happy Monday, everybody. It's Marcy from wavesofcommunication.com coming live on YouTube for another episode of Language Facilitation Q&A. And I'm very excited today to have some wonderful questions that I fielded all weekend. I talked to, I'm not even sure how many people. I know it was between 1 and 2,000 somewhere, probably more than 1,500, I think. People came to the Florida statewide card festival which is the here I've got the brochure. It's the conference for autism and related disabilities. I know there's card in all over the country in the United States, and this particular organization, it's a nationwide organization, has chapters all over the United States. And this one in Florida was very active. They had some wonderful presentations. So it doesn't matter if your child is diagnosed with anything. The resources at this conference were very good because they were all practical. There were lots of success story kind of things too, where I got to meet James Durbin, which was really very fun, from American Idol. If any of you have watched that show, he is an adult who has autism, and he was there doing a meet and greet. He was sponsored by the Autism Society of Florida, and they came to they obviously were a big sponsor for this card conference, and they invited James Durbin to come, and he did some wonderful sort of interactive performance. He had kids and adults, I call them all kids, how old they are, up on stage to sing with him and really embrace the superpower of music and rock music with kids with autism. So that was a very fun situation. And I didn't get to go to a lot of the talks because I was talking myself actually at my table. I was a sponsor myself of the conference, and because I wanted to this was my first opportunity of 2020 to get out in the world and talk to people face to face, and not just parents. I, primarily try to reach parents because the resources that I provide are for parents, but I was very excited to go to this conference because the first day was designed for professionals. It was a special professional education day, statewide education day, where they did training, ADOS training, and other kinds of training for professionals who were psychologists, teachers, ABA professionals, BCBA folks, anyone who is working with children with autism and related disorders as a professional. It was the first day. So you can imagine it was interesting because here I am. I wrote a book that's called Teach Your Child to Talk Faster Than Speech Therapy in a room with a bunch of professionals. And I was very excited to get to talk to these folks too, because I wanted to know their perspective. I know that I used to be a professional working with children in the autism spectrum and all kinds of disorders as a therapist, and now I don't work with children at all. I only work with adults. So it was interesting for me to connect with other professionals who are still in the trenches at therapy centers, going to homes, working, in schools, places with kids with all different kinds of issues. And I wanted to know their perspective and talk to them about the services so that they could share the videos and online resources, my platform, really, Waves of Communication, with everybody who is online and interested in learning how to help late talking kids shift from nonverbal communication, whatever it is, into spoken language. And that's where a lot of therapists, in fact, all therapists, get stumped, because I learned after trying to do it for 30 years that I could not get the kids to adapt from the nonverbal things they were already doing at home. I couldn't do that as a therapist. And when I realized that, how to remind parents to accept that responsibility and go ahead and take on the activities and give them activities that they can use every day, that's how I figured out how it works. So what I did was I talked to every therapist, every professional I could to find out what they do, what their exposure is, and how do they help parents. And many of them do provide outside resources because their focus is in their therapy session on working with their child. But what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to ask them what kinds of struggles they were having, because I talk on my end every day. I talk to parents who, I don't want to say complain about their therapists, but what they do, when the reason they show up and talk to me and follow my platform is because all the things that they have been doing. As a matter of fact, I just saw just now a mom who just joined my language facilitation resources group. I can't remember her name, Mamutita, I think. Anyway, if you moms like that, they reach out every day and tell me, I have tried everything. I've had every therapy, every whatever, and my child's not talking. And they want to blame the problem on the therapist or the therapy or the situation. And it's not productive, obviously, to do that. And it's always more productive when everybody's on the team together. So these parents who talk to me often every day are the parents who are frustrated. But I wanted to hear from the professionals, because I said, I hear from a lot of parents who aren't seeing progress in their therapies. However, when they're starting to do language facilitation at home, then their therapies are so much more effective. And that's what all of the teachers said. In fact, one of the teachers, it was a therapist, who said, I don't know how to get parents. That was their question. Was most of the time there are parents who are interested in learning how to do the therapy. But if the therapy structure doesn't involve parent contact. So, for example, if they work at a school, their struggle was, I don't even see the parents. And even if I do send something home, I don't even think they even look in my child's backpack, or they're not even responding to the things that I give them, or let alone paying attention to what I'm doing at school. How do I get that parent interested in learning how to take on the responsibility for helping their kids at home? Because I shared with them that we as therapists can't do it. And when their parents expect therapists only to fix their kids for them, and they're stuck in that mindset of, I'll just drop my kid off and every week they're going to start talk better. What I reminded those therapists about is, if they were presented with those moms who just weren't receptive or not even accessible to them, then the best thing that they could do was to send them to the free resources that I have. Because in those situations, the work environment just isn't structured for a lot of parent coaching and counseling. It's just not structured for it. And expecting, parents will watch my channel and then go and tell their school therapist or their clinic therapist, who is working in a room with 5 other people, or, only sees their kiddo in a group at school or something like that. They want those therapists in their work environment to adapt to do those kinds of specific language facilitation things instead of them doing it themselves. And first of all, it's never going to happen instead of you. And it's not even going to happen in addition to you. Because honestly, every parent and the therapists who I talk to, you're not going to change how a therapist works with your child. They go to school, they go to these trainings to learn these evidence-based, tried and true ways that they're going to take to their clinics and use with your child. The natural language facilitation that I talk about is the part that takes all of the teaching that they learn in all those other places and put it into your home where it makes sense to you, where you feel comfortable using it, right? That's where a parent's part is. But those therapists, they don't have any control over how they're able to work in a lot of ways, and a lot of reasons. That's why I left those systems, because I was unhappy a lot of times about when, I was presented with the need to work in a certain way. And I learned quickly, especially after I started doing early intervention coaching, that it was necessary for me to train parents to work in their own way in their own home. But it is a fact of life that many therapists in their work environment don't have this opportunity. I think it's a luxury, which is why I completely changed how I work. Hey, Laura, thanks for popping in to say hi today. And everybody who's joining me, I am taking questions from parents, but I found it very, very interesting. And I thought that you as parents would want to know, what are the therapists and BCBA people thinking when they hear me talk about language facilitation? And I think that these questions were it was super enlightening to me to have them see how many parents just refuse to accept the responsibility of working with their kids in between sessions. And I knew I saw this myself. And I knew that I also saw it because it wasn't necessarily the fault of the parents. Maybe their home situation was so complicated. And, I worked with a lot of migrant families who moved very frequently, spoke a different language than the surrounding people where they lived. They had very few resources around them, financial or even support and family, because they were living in new places. All of these situations are happening in everyday life. And the therapists that I talked to and the teachers and the professionals this weekend, they all experience these families too. I know that it's out there. And that's why I shifted my platform to Waves of Communication, to be a platform to get the solutions to your problems. And that's why I do these Q&As. So if you bring me a problem, I can at least direct you to a video, because there's 200 videos on this YouTube channel to take you to the answers to those questions. And in the book, it really helps you find the answers to those solutions yourself as well. So these resources, these Q&As, are really a combination of all the resources that I provide. This is really the icing on the cake. Laura knows, because she keeps coming back week after week for more Q&A to hear more, because I'm solving everybody's problems, and these problems overlap. But listen, the therapists out there are feeling, many of them are telling me that the parents who they work with, either they don't have access to you as a parent, or you're not responding to what they're giving you. So then if that second situation is happening, I always go back to, why do kids not respond to strategies when parents give them to them? It's only the same two reasons. They either don't understand or they don't like it. And it comes back to, if it isn't fun, it isn't fun, right? So if your therapist is giving you things to do, number one, listen to them, learn from them. They did go to school. They did learn about autism. Learn from those things that they're giving you to do and try it. Okay. Now, if what they tell you to do in the end of the therapy session or in your coaching session, if it doesn't make sense to you, right? There's only two reasons you won't do it. Number one, it doesn't make sense. You don't understand exactly how to use whatever they said to do in your house. You haven't found a time, a place, a way, a method, a reason, a motivation, a something to do it. That's one reason, right? You either just don't know how, and you don't know how to make it work in that thing. And if that's the case, then you have to tell them, explain more. How can I do this when I help them? You have to help the therapist. You have to tell them, like, all right, how can I do this when I'm driving in the car? How can I do this on the playground? How can I do this? Because if you give them a little bit of a structure, then they can give you strategies. That's where the videos on my channel come from, everybody. These ideas that I have tried, they worked. Maybe a family suggested to me, or I tried with one family and they said the feedback came really good, and I tried it with another family and they worked. I just look for patterns of the things that work for families. And you in your household have your own patterns going on. Think about the energy of the different people and how you can implement these things. You have to do the work to make it fit in your house, because the therapist is giving you the same strategies, just like these videos you're watching right now. I'm giving giving you strategies that everybody gets, right? One mom who's watching me right now has a 2-year-old and another one has a 20-year-old. And you have different things going on in your household, but it's important, again, if you are working with a therapist, that you are on the same page with what's going on in that office. Because even if you can't go there, you have to know what methods they are using if you want to try to carry it over at home, okay? Now, the second reason that those strategies don't work is that the therapist doesn't know how to help you make that connection. And that's why I made waves of communication, because I have been doing it so long that these strategies you see on here don't come from a textbook. I wrote my own book, because the ones that I learned, the memorization, the drill work, those things, I know parents can't use them. Therapists use them in the way that they learn those evidence-based ways, but parents, the evidence base you need is your individual success. Is this working for you in your house? That's the evidence that you need to know if things are progressing. If it isn't fun, if it's not productive, if it's not going for you, then you need to get a new strategy. So if your therapist can't provide you with the strategies you need, but you still love them and your child loves them, that's not a reason to change your therapist. It's a reason for you to go elsewhere, like my channel, and try to find your own resources on your own. Some therapists, some parents and therapists, most parents and therapists, I guess I should say, have no choice about how you come together. You get the therapist that is in network, that is available, that is the one that has the open schedule, even if you don't pay for it. Excuse me. And the therapist is assigned to see who fits in their schedule. That's how it works in the world of the therapy world. So this, excuse me. My goodness, let me have a drink. I've got extra. Excuse me, everybody. Okay, so this is that's the biggest question I got from therapists was, how do I work with parents when I either don't have access or they don't respond? And so if I'm talking to a parent out there, the answer is my waves of communication resources. If I'm talking to a therapist out there, the answer is my waves of communication resources, because that's what I do. All right. Now, the other thing that I did do, a lot of the parents and professionals that were at this conference, I want to say professionals because they work with children who are not their own personal child, but they also didn't go to school to learn about autism. That was also a big population that was represented at this conference. So they're paraprofessionals, they're coaches, athletic coaches or job coaches, their parents who are also paraprofessionals, their parent advocates who are working in parent groups and talking to people. They go to these conferences like the CARD conference to learn more about how to, engage their kids and help them be successful in the world. It's not about in-school stuff. It's about parents and really what they need to do. And they go to these conferences to learn about the different disorders and whatever, but what they really need is strategies, right? And one of the common things that I've heard from these parents is if they are a parent of their own child, then they don't have this issue. But sometimes people who are not parents, they have typically developing children, right, who don't have developmental disabilities, and they're working in a job as a paraprofessional with kids, or maybe they don't have children at all of their own, and they're working with kids who have disabilities. And they notice, in fact, this one guy, I'm going to do a shout out. So, hey, Lewis, I hope if you're watching, say thank you so much for our big chats this weekend. This is a parent or a kid trainer. He works with high school kids up to 22 years old while they're in their high school variants after they've finished their academics to train them into working in the world. And he used to be an athletic coach, and now he works with this retraining program, doing all kinds of functional skills and job training skills. And so one of the things that he noticed is that there's a lot of kids in high school with autism who are bullied, and because they look weird, different, and sometimes sometimes they don't have very good like hygiene. They don't change their clothes often. They don't shower often. They don't like to do these kinds of things. And that's one of the big common things that was, communicated with both parents of older kids, older meaning older than their teens, done with high school older, and those kids, and also the kids who are in their transition, like they're not, I call them all kids. Like I said, they're all older, but they're stuck in whatever they learn to use in school, and they're trying to move forward into more functional communication that's going to get them jobs and that's going to help them be successful when their parents die, because they're in their 20s and their parents are in their 50s and 60s. And then there's grandparents who are there also with the situation, helping and wondering about those things. And these parents, these folks, they see how other people talk to the kids, and they don't know how to speak to them necessarily. That's one of the big questions they got, because they see that when the kids are when people baby talk or talk down to them or pick on them or beat them up, that kind of thing, if they're teachers or parents or whatever, they see how this is happening to the kids. And they want to know, how do they talk? Like, how does it your neighbor, or if you have a neighbor who has a late talking kid, or again, you're working in a classroom with kids who are late talking and you're not used to that before. How do you talk even to these kids? Because if you talk to them like babies, they react because they're smarter than that. It's just their language ability is too slow. And so this was a really common coaching thing that I did this weekend, was talk to a lot of these professionals. And so this is the video, this is the recommendation that you share with like Uncle Joe or your mom and dad if they're staying with you, right? So the way that all people should talk to late talking children is in a way to make sure that that person understands everything you are saying, no matter what you have to do. So instead of just saying the two things that will trigger this memory and the visual center of the brain are like when you have an object in front of you or the topic of the situation that you're talking about with the child. If you do something like ask a question, what is this? Or you label the thing, this is a pencil. Those two activities trigger the memory part of your brain and the visual part of the brain, but they don't talk about the language and processing centers. They don't engage those things because the child is too busy worried about the answer. Do they get the right answer? So the way you talk to a child is with descriptive language. A child who has limited verbal, nonverbal, even if they are using needs-based language. If you are talking about a thing with a child, it's always good if you have a common topic and you can get common focus. If it's your child's interest, that's going to be even better, the child's interests, because they're already focused there. You want to join them there. It has to be descriptive language, explanation. This is a pencil. It's used for writing. My pencil has a new eraser because this one is wrong or broken. My pencil is long and I like it. So all the things that I said about the pencil, something about this unique pencil that makes it different than other ones, there's something that describes it that makes it look similar to others. It's long and it's yellow. And I described its function, how you write with it. And then what also I did to describe this pencil was talk about my opinion. I like it. It's my pencil. I also talked about whose pencil it is. Where does it fit in the world? It's my pencil. I like it. I use it to write. And if I want to invite the child to use my pencil or engage in the thing that I'm doing, I want to invite them to do the activity that I did. So here's a paper. Let's write together. Or I'll give them this pencil to try and get my own other pencil and try so that we can do it together as a mirror activity. Whatever level your child can stay and engage with you while you take them through a demonstration An example, offer, try it. Because if they try it and they succeed a little bit, they will maintain their focus and stay with you as you continue to teach them. But as soon as you throw in a prompt or a question or trigger, not the reasoning, processing, back and forth kinds of parts of your brain, if we're talking about brain anatomy, and we are always talking about developing new neural pathways, the pathways that are necessary for the complex understanding and development of language. That's what natural development requires. You can't train it. It's not pictures. It's not step by step. Well, it is step by step, but it's an evolutionary step by step. It's not linear, is what I mean to say. You build skills on build skills ladder. I don't know, however you want to use some kind of visualization, but it really is about the models that you provide to children. And one of the big things they talked about at the conference, and one of the big things that I say all the time, is that at school and therapy, children hear directives all the time. Do this, say this. Do this, say this. Come here, get in line, hold your hand, all of that stuff. They're going to hear that stuff from other people. They can't stop doing it that way. That's how classrooms and teachers and therapies work. Parents' job is to teach the answers to the questions that everyone else is going to be asking them. So if you continue to ask questions, then your kids are never going to hear the answers. And that's when anxiety builds. So if you have anxiety going, and this is where I'm going to move now into the questions from the parents, because at this conference, the parents were older kids mostly, very few early intervention. The youngest family that I talked to that I remember who told me their kid's age was, I'll call them out also on this video. It was Chris and Marilyn who visited me. They follow me on Facebook and visited me at the conference. It made me feel like a celebrity. So I was signing books. It was very, very fun to actually connect with people. I cannot wait till I get out in the world and connect with folks like Laura. I can't wait to someday meet you in person so we can find out what's going on with your child and just get a hug and connect with that energy, because that's the best part of it. When I was a first newbie speech therapist learning, back in the 80s, when I was first starting school, I had this crazy idea that I was going to help parents for free. And I just was somehow going to use my knowledge and help parents learn what they need to do. And somehow the universe was going to take care of me. And that's what's working right now. The private clients who I work with, I give them my 150%. But everybody here watching me, you get my 100% every time. And that's why your questions are really important to me. So I do think hard and carefully about them. And I want to make sure that I give you the right answers. So I really appreciate all of you watching today. And if you wouldn't mind, in exchange, hit the like button. So let me know that you like this. Let's talk about Laura. Look, Laura's sharing all of her. Laura's the smart one. She's always getting coaching every week. And you can do it too. So, and she always is smart enough to remind me about who her child is when she asks a question, because I can't remember. I talk to so many parents all the time. So she always reminds me that her child is 3-year-old and she's a little girl, and she has her first pediatrician appointment on Wednesday to have an assessment, which was arranged by her speech and language therapist. Do you have any advice for what takes place there? Oh, that's a really good question. All right, there's more. Also, how do I put forward that my daughter says the words she says at home if she doesn't say anything in front of the therapist without causing any issues? I have some recorded videos. So already you already heard one of the solutions that I was going to do. You already have recorded videos, and that's definitely that. All right, hang on. Let me have one little drink here. All right. Also, will the pediatrician be open? Well, first of all, I can't tell you what the pediatrician will be, but let's see. Will the pediatrician be open to me showing her some of them? Oh, I should hope that she would be able to show you the videos. If she doesn't, then I would be concerned. And will she believe me when I tell her my daughter speaks a lot more words than her speech therapist has mentioned to them? Great topic, by the way. I'm glad the conference you went to went well, and it's exciting listening to things you discuss with others. See, I think that's one of the reasons that I decided for this topic. Thank you for that feedback, Laura, because I think that's what people like to watch these. So, yeah, someday we're going to meet. All right, so let's see. These pediatrician appointments that people take their kids to, I mean, it varies widely by pediatrician, by doctor, and the whole situation. Now, in Laura's case, she did use the clarifier that this was set up by the speech therapist. And I don't know the background behind it, but if there was a discussion of diagnosis of any kind, autism diagnosis, or to find out if there is something wrong, I mean, I guess I always wonder what is the reason for any therapist to send a child to a pediatrician. I would send a child to a pediatrician if I thought they were unwell. If there was some illness issue with them. But some pediatricians are neurology pediatricians or developmental pediatricians, and their focus is on developmental skills, which is almost more like what a psychologist in the United States would do testing, like the folks at the conference who were doing the ADOS testing. And this doctor may be trained to do the ADOS, which Autism Diagnostic Observation Scale, I think is what it's called. And there is a number you can get, which the insurance companies and those entities who understand what diagnoses are, many times they have to have numbers. In the United States, that's the case. So in order for your child to qualify for early intervention services, for example, there must be a certain percentage delay depending on where you live. Same with schools. There must be standardized testing that shows numbers that show so many standard deviations or a criteria for eligibility for the services. And what that is eligibility for funding, basically, for the services, because the services are only set up to be available for children who truly demonstrate a need, and the need is demonstrated by the evaluation tools that are done in that assessment, whoever is doing it. So in many cases, hopefully, if we're talking about a major diagnosis that's going, and I call major diagnosis when it guides future intervention. So if you get a diagnosis of chronic ear fluid, it's going to guide intervention to target that diagnosis. If you get a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, it is going to drive the intervention toward that diagnosis, which assumes that a child has poor auditory processing and potentially physical, whatever reasons they use to justify, because there is in the DSM for the 4 or 5, whatever we are on, there are criteria. So in order to get that diagnosis, it should be, and in fact, most cases are requirements. One of the parent evaluators today told me that she is not comfortable recommending diagnosis unless 5 different measures, 5 different measures. They don't all have to be standardized, but they all have to be focused on identifying the symptoms and strategies that are identified, or not strategies, the symptoms and criteria that are identified in the DSM, right? Because the DSM is the diagnostic medical criteria for what is autism spectrum disorder. And there are specific criteria, just like diabetes, right? This is what it is. And then when they write that code that's connected with that diagnosis in the DSM, it's called a number. That code, the child needs to have demonstrated those characteristics. So, number one, the purpose of the visit is, if I'm going to take my child, when I did take my child to the doctor, it was to solve a problem. And if that doctor could solve the problem, then that was why I was going. And I was looking for the doctor to provide me with a solution to the problem. So if you are going to this pediatrician visit, Laura, to try to get a solution to the problem which you think is your child is late talking, first of all, that's what you have to get in your head before you walk in the door, is how is this doctor going to help me? Okay. And if they don't tell you how they're going to help you, you hope that they're going to volunteer that information to you. Same with a therapist, same with anybody you take your child to. You want to know, how is this child going to help me help my child? Because your doctor's going to give you medicine that you will give to your child. Your doctor's going to give you therapy that you will make sure your child does or works with, right? You're responsible for the whole thing. So you want to find out, what is the purpose of this thing? Now, what is the purpose for the therapist recommendation for the doctor? For me, I would recommend if a child was unwell. I would also recommend my child to go to a doctor or therapist if I didn't know the answer, right? So if that therapist is unable to determine the root of your child's late talking, Laura, then they are sending you to someone else who can potentially do that. And the answer to what problem you're taking, what problem is this doctor solving, is what is the root of my child's problem? And then that doctor should be looking at your child's overall wellness system. So just like you read in the book, you have to evaluate the physical body and all of that get that all well and healthy before you can start to work on behavioral intervention at all of any kind. Because your child can't learn new behaviors, shift from behaviors, if they're in a crisis mode trying to heal their body. Now, bodies can be in the process of healing and still make improvements in other areas, but the red lights, the pain has to be gone, or at least learn to work with it, that kind of thing. That's what has to happen with the whole process of the situation. The physical issues have to be taken care of. So my suggestion about, Laura's been working with my strategies for months now. She's not in my program. Parents in my program would ask me this question very often as well, by the way. How do I talk to my doctor about this thing we were sent to? In fact, just happened. I had a mom who took her child, and what happened was the mom took video. She explained exactly what she's been doing, but she also did explain the difference. And this is, I think, what helped her in the face of a very biased office. There was a team of people. They were there for 2.5 hours. She clearly demonstrated with video, this mom, that she had used my strategy. She's a mom in my program. She had used the strategies in my program to get her child from complete behavior communication whatsoever, all of it, right? And he's, I want to say 3, 4-ish, very no spontaneous verbalization that wasn't entertainment value or echolale or something like that. And now he is in telling stories in short phrases about what's going on. He's not talking confidently. He's not talking with everyone. And it's been about 6 months they've been in the program. And when they look at the videos that they sent me original for analysis versus the videos that they took the week before they went to the doctor's office, and they showed both of those videos to the doctor and the team, and they said, because the child wasn't as keen to participate in everything. However, he did participate very well with the things that he loved. And there were 5 different professionals, and he was great with 3 out of the 5. Okay. But 2 of those 5, he did nothing for. And it was the stuff that didn't make sense to him, the stuff that he was like, he didn't get or whatever. And his parents answered thousands of questions. And what they felt like was thousands of questions in the process. Okay. So then at the end of 2.5 hours, they said, well, we can't rule out autism, is what they said, because even with the progress that she had shown, but because of the progress that she has shown, because this mom was like, I want you to definitively tell me that this is what's going on. And I want this 2.5 hours of testing and time that you spent with my child to definitively tell me what's going on to help my child. And she came out with no answers except for she wasn't willing to accept the autism diagnosis because there were too many things that he did. Plus, she's a physical therapist, by the way. She's a physical therapist herself. And so she knew that this was what was going on. And the one thing that her child didn't participate in was the visual motor because it didn't make sense. It was too high level for him. So the recommendations for this mom, who is a physical therapist and has been working with her child's visual motor and visual motor coordination and has seen him like thread things and do all kinds of great fine motor, were speech therapy and occupational therapy. Because they couldn't justify behavior therapy because she had herself modified her child's behavior without any kind of therapy in the mix. She was waiting for 6 months for this evaluation. So 6 months, she worked with her kiddo with language facilitation strategies. She went to the visit because the therapist had done it. She took her videos, before and after videos. And yes, the doctors didn't 100% say, wow, they were impressed. She said they were really impressed with what I was able to do with him. But this doctor said that if they come back, first of all, they were guided to come back in 4 months to do the test again. Because she's like, just in case the progress that she's been doing for 6 months stops for the next 4, like she's going to stop doing what she's doing at home, right? They told her to stop, not stop, but just say, come back in 4 months because we want to do it again. And then we'll be able to completely rule out the autism. But until then, we want you to go and get him used to a clinical setting, is what they said. Because even if you are doing great things and seeing progress, we still need to get him used to working with therapists, because eventually he'll go to therapy, when he goes to school or something like that. And this mom's goal is for her kiddo to not be in any kind of therapy and go to regular kindergarten, is her goal, with other kids, or maybe with an IEP with assistance or something. But she's not looking at self-contained anything. She wants her child to be doing his best spoken language. And this was her experience, okay? And so we chatted about it and we talked about it. And her plan is because she also has been able to get her child to do all of those visual motor things that he testing, because she's a PT. So she said, thank you very much. And I don't think we'll see you in 4 months. And we're going back to language facilitation and we're going to do our own thing. And when kindergarten roundup comes up, what they call around here, when they start to let parents know those pre-kindergarten screenings she said, that's when we'll go and we'll show them. And we're not going to tell them that we're doing anything. We're just going to continue to do our own whatever, because the therapist, just like Laura said, the therapist's representation of what's actually going on with her child is misleading the doctors, because that's what happened. They saw a private therapist, the early intervention therapist or whatever. So they had all the old things, all the old reports from before they had started language facilitation. They were in this limbo time between after he turned 3 and what they were going to do with, future, because they were on a wait list, which is what happens. So parents are put on these wait lists to get these things, and they didn't want to do the school services. They decided to do language facilitation. So she did it instead. So that's the thing. So Laura says, thank you. You're once in a million. Wow. About the story about the mom and her boy. I mean, that's what happens. Just don't let them try to sell you something you don't need, is basically what you need to go in there with. And on the other hand, if you need something, Laura, like if there's something that you feel like you really need to get from these people, then you need to be clear about what that is. Because remember that if you want a definitive, exactly what's going on with your child, and you're taking your child to a visit to rule out something else, like let's not go looking for a diagnosis, folks. Let's try to find out what is going on, like looking for a specific diagnosis. I mean, let's find the right one. Holistic evaluation, whole body evaluation, starting with the physical body, going out to the emotional body, going out to the environment around them. All of these things cause blockages to late talking. So that's what's going on. Hey, Karam, nice to see you, Karam. Thank you for joining today. If you have a question, please post it in the comments. Let's see. There was one more thing that I wanted to post. Oh yeah, we were talking about how when para adults, they see people talking down to kids. So if you ever see someone talking down to your kiddo and using baby talk or language that they don't, is either too simple and boring for them or too high and above their level, the best thing that you can do as a language facilitator parent is to model the language that you want your child to hear. So just like I was talking about the pencil, if you see someone in your house, even if it's your spouse, and they start labeling, asking questions, do this, say this, do this, say this in your house, if they start to do that, then what you need to do is you need just kind of need to step in and go, oh, okay, you guys are talking about pencils. Can I talk about pencils too? And yeah, you interrupted them or whatever they were doing, and they might go, what? What are you doing? And that's what you want, right? You want to get their attention, because this whole do this, say this, your child struggling with whatever, your spouse, if you see it happening with Uncle Joe, if you see it happen with Auntie, if you see it happen with Grandma, step in and just don't stop them from doing what they're doing. Just kind of reach and teach in that situation. So you go in there and you model it. So like what I told this coach guy to do, you see someone else doing something, you talk in a way that makes you feel good. Hey, dude, how you doing? And then you get their attention and saying words that are fun, like, I like it. This is my favorite pencil. Because, excuse me, my nose itches. Maybe somebody's thinking about me. Your comment about it, that's what's going to get their attention. Like, look at my cool pencil. I mean, it's really not cool. It's, very, very common pencil. It doesn't have glitters or sparkles. It does have an eraser on it, but it's cool because it can write, and I can tell stories, and I can leave messages, and I can draw pictures, and there are amazing things I can do with this pencil. And that's the fact about life. When you think about the kids who love to play with sticks, we didn't have technology when I was a kid. I played in the woods. We ran around. Even when I lived in the city, we ran around and figured out what was going on in the gutters in the back, and we dug in people's trash, and we got into stuff, and we explored in shops, and we got to know our community helpers, our policemen, and people like that in our community, because that was our environment. When you live in an area where there's country, you hike in the woods and you avoid the bears, and you learn how to take care and keep your trash picked up. If you live near the water, you do the same thing. You take care of marine life. You make sure you wear sunscreen. All of those things that you learn about being where you are in life. If you're a teacher, a para, a professional, or an aunt or an uncle or someone who's just coming into a place where there is a late talking child, you have super lot of power to help that child come out of their shell and use their social communication. And that's one of the biggest problems that these parents have. Their kids get so stuck in their systems. They learn 80 levels on their communication device, and they're so busy scrolling through this level to that level to this level to that level, that they're missing the conversation about the pencil, like how fun it was to play with sticks. So So that's the best thing about all of this. And that's one of the things that I liked best about the cards. So the card conference, when I just met parents and professionals, everybody was so like-minded. They all were there to help kids with autism be successful in the world. And that's my people. It doesn't matter autism and related disabilities. I don't like the word disabilities very much. Maybe they're all just challenges that kids are coming up and getting over. And these people, these adults with autism, like, like this American Idol guy. I mean, it's amazing to see folks using what they know to overcome. And whether they've got support or not, they're using their own energy. They got their body healed. They got their mindset healed. They're trying very hard at overcoming their challenges and getting out in the world, but they didn't do it alone. Right? They had help. They had help from parents. They had help from caregivers. They had help from, if they didn't have parents, they had grandparents or foster parents or somebody out there who was working with them to help bring their wisdom to the world. Because every kid, every human has superpowers. And if they're not good at talking, they're super good at something else. That's for sure. And you got to find out what it is and bring it out into the world. And that's what goes on. So, all right. So Karoom says they're using my 6 strategies for natural language with your 3.5-year-old boy, and it's working. Thanks to you. Yay, Karam. I'm so glad you said that. Thank you so much. Please give this video a like, everybody, and you can share it. The link is right there. If I post it over on Facebook, over all you folks on Facebook who popped over here to YouTube, remember I'm live on doing Q&A on Facebook, 2 p.m. on Thursdays, right? Also, everybody, I just redesigned my website. So go over there, wavesofcommunication.com. It's all right here behind me. You see it all going on. Waves of Communication. Go over there and check out all the resources. There is the independent study course. There is the book. There is the blogs. There are the parent reviews. There is the free 45-minute class for parents. And this class isn't just salesy. I mean, I know a lot of people give away stuff for free. It's 45 minutes of what is late talking, what is blocking the process, and exactly what you need to do to help your child start talking. And people like Laura and Karam, and it's great. Ravi's there. So Ravi and Strana, strong duo. Hi, you have nice glasses. Well, thank you. Can you react to a video? I don't know. You can like it. You can just like this video a lot, and that's will always be very helpful for me. So thanks for joining, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. I like to try to keep these videos under an hour, and I appreciate you all joining me today. And I'll see you on Thursday over on Facebook. So I appreciate you all watching. And if you want to know, here's my book. I'll show it one more time. If it isn't fun, it isn't fun, everybody. Make the process easy, happy, safe, and fun, and you can do it. Parents are the best language facilitators. You are the ones that can get your kids talking. Oh, by the way, just as a quickie, I'm going to be doing a new challenge. My birthday's coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm going to do a new challenge. So if you took the swapping the prompting challenge, you're definitely going to want to see this challenge, because I'm actually trying to decide which one I'm going to do. And I might, if you're over on poll, I put it out here too. I'm going between 2 topics: behavior, like aggressive behavior, working with that, and screen time. I've got both of those. I've got a whole process in my head. I'm going to make a whole video with structure, just like the swapping the prompting, and I'm going to try to do that. So, thank you so much for joining me, everybody, and I will see you all on my next video. Wavesofcommunication.com. Go check out all the resources. See you all, everybody. Bye for now.